Okay, for this session, we're going to look at some basic ways to sort of grade your images. So we won't be going too much into the science of it. This is more doing it visually by eye and using simple tools. So there's no complicated scopes and Lumetri panels and all that kind of thing. Just for the sake of computer speed, I'm just going to use these two still images, which are a building and a character. And that's just to speed things up for the tutorial, but obviously you're going to be doing this on your video. Here in the project window over to the left, you can see there's the building and the figure examples. And what we're going to do is now create an adjustment layer by right-clicking, new item, adjustment layer, and then just OK those settings. And you can see now it's added in here an adjustment layer. I'm going to change the color of this just for clarity, really. I'll change it to blue. And then I'm going to drag in the adjustment layer to the timeline. So you can see we've got our building clip and we've got the adjustment layer here. And there's nothing in this adjustment layer. If I turn the building off, you can see that. But what we're going to do is we're going to apply our effects to the adjustment layer, and then that will affect anything that's down below it. Okay, so you're not actually doing anything to the original clip, you're just working in this adjustment layer. And we're going to add 3 effects in there that effectively give you what you need for your color grade. We're going to look at exposure and contrast, color temperature, and then saturation, color saturation. And for that, we're going to use these 3 basic tools. So if you go over to your effects panel, and that might be somewhere different on your version of Premiere or in your software. For this, we're going to look at video effects, color correction, and you can see there's all kinds of tools and different things in there. But the basic ones we're going to use are brightness and contrast. So I'm going to drag that to the adjustment layer, and you can see here there's the brightness and contrast. We're going to use color balance, and I'm going to drag that to the clip, and you can see that opens up here. And then we're going to use the next one, which is hue, lightness, and saturation. So brightness and contrast, color balance, and color balance with hue, lightness, and saturation. Now I'm going to drag this down so you can see the image a little bit more clearly. We don't need to see the timeline now, we're just purely working on the visuals. And we're going to start with brightness and contrast. So you can see both of these images are fairly washed out, so they do need some grading to just make them pop a little more. So I'm going to open up the brightness and contrast, and there are 2 controls here, brightness and contrast, as it says on the tin. And if I drag brightness all the way to the right, everything gets brighter. If we drag it all the way to the left, everything gets much darker. So, and this button here resets it. For the purpose of this grade, let's say we're going to go for, we want to make this a darker image, as if it's kind of evening time or coming into night time. So obviously the first thing we want to do is to drag down that slider so that the brightness goes down and it looks far more dusky already. And we're going to boost the contrast. And you'll notice as we boost the contrast, we lose detail in parts of the image. So you have to decide if that's what you want to do. If we take this all the way up, of course, we lose everything. And what contrast does basically is make the brights brighter and the darks darker. Okay, so if we go all the way up, you see that. So let's say we're about happy with that image there. What we will do is come back. Color grading is all about adjusting and readjusting and going back. Now we'll go to color balance, which on first glimpse looks a lot more complicated. But if you break down all these parameters, it's pretty simple, really. You see we've got 3 shadow, 3 midtone, and 3 highlight controls. And each of them is shadow red, shadow green, blue. So it's RGB, red, green, blue. Okay. And you can adjust the colors in each of them. The way to do this initially is to give yourself time just to see what each of these sliders does if you slide them up and down. So moving the red all the way up to 100 obviously makes the image redder, but as we take away red and move down to minus 100, you can see things start to get much bluer, and that's because there's a relationship between red and red and blue in the color theory, something we don't need to go into now. But if we push up the blue in the shadows, it starts to get bluer, and if we start to go down, things start to change colors. So the thing to do really is to experiment. But I'm going to boost the blue up there, and that looks fairly nice. Let's have a look at what happens in the midtones. So obviously things are starting to get bluer, and we pull the reds away. And then in the highlights, again, have a mess around, see what the buttons do. These will have different effects on different clips, and it's for you as the artist to decide. So let's say I'm happy with that as my color balance. So it's fairly blue. And then the last slider we're going to look at is in the color balance, hue, lightness, and saturation. And the one we're really concerned with here is the saturation, and that's how saturated the color is or how much gray is present. So if we minus 100, it goes to full grayscale image, and if we plus 100, the blue gets really, really intense. So maybe I don't want to alter that too much. Maybe we're going to take it down a little bit. And then what you can do then is, if you're happy with that, you can go ahead, or you can go back and start to play with these parameters again and further experiment. There's no wrong or right. It depends what you want from the shot. Maybe that's the kind of shot you want, or maybe this is the kind of shot you want. Now, I'm going to just do that contrast a little bit more. So we've done our color grade on that. We've changed it, and you can see if I just move this up again, we've got our color grade is held in the adjustment layer, and with the eye icon, we can see the before and we see the after. So there's a marked difference in the two images. Now we've got a second image here, and the beauty or the advantage of adjustment layers is if the shots are pretty similar, you can use the same adjustment layer to change this image. And all I would do now is drag this across, and there you can see that that character is immediately graded, and then they're reasonably in line, those clips. But let's do something a bit more individual on her. So if we want to use our settings from the previous adjustment layer, what you can do is copy and paste, or in Premiere I can press Alt and drag this across, and that creates a copy. Now make sure you've got the right layer selected. So we're in the adjustment layer for the second clip or for the second image, and here's our settings. Now let's say we wanted to warm this image up, so I'm going to reset everything. So that's like with no color adjustment whatsoever. First thing we're going to look is at brightness and contrast. So I wonder if that's bright enough. Just increasing the contrast already makes the image pop a lot more. Again, if we went all the way, you can see kind of how it goes, and all the way down. I'm going to choose something like that. Brightness. Okay. Again, you need to decide as the artist or as the creator what it is you're after. Let's go into our color balance. And now if we're trying to warm this image up, if we go away from blue, that should add a yellowy tint. So you can see it starts to warm up. And maybe we can boost the red a bit in there. If we want those trees in the background to be greener and lush green, we can boost the greens. But you can see it starts to affect the character. So it's all about balancing what it is you want. Let's move that up a bit, and I'm just going to keep playing with these until I'm reasonably happy with what I've got. Again, blue makes it cooler. Going away from blue makes it warmer. And as I keep saying, this is up to you as the artist as to what you want to do with your color grade. Boost that green, have a play around, put some more red in it. So generally skin tones are more in the mid-tone regions, and that's what you need to adjust. And then let's go into our final one, which is the saturation slider. Again, boost that all the way and it goes ridiculous. All the way down, it's black and white, and we can start to think, how much do we want in there? Okay, so that's a reasonable one. You can see there's a lot of green in her in her clothes here. Maybe you want to turn that down, turn that up, so you'd go back and pull back the greens a bit, and that allows kind of different hues to come through. I'm not going to go any more into the creative side of that. That's entirely up to you what you want to do with those settings. But then if I just bring this up, we've got this line across here for the adjustment layer. Remember, all the corrections are in that layer. So if I switch that off and on, you get the original image. But now you can start to, if you wanted to animate the color grade. So, you know, if I put a keyframe here and a keyframe here, that means the color grade gradually fades in. So if I just press play, you can see the effect of that color grade. Let's do the same here. And there you go. So there's some basic tools for a simple way to color grade your images.